What? We're not sold out? Hold on a second. I think we got to go, guys. Thank you very much, and thank you, Lorraine, for this beautiful introduction. Like many productions, this was a very important one for Red, for Nicola Shindler, for STUDIOCANAL, and quite a number of people put this real-life thriller together. What's come out of it is a beautiful baby, and it's really, really gorgeous. We hope that all of you will tune into it. It took a bunch of phenomenal talent, supporters, and partners to put the show together. There was, at the head of CANAL Plus Group, Maxime Sada, who made sure that it landed at C-Wheat, which is the free TV network of CANAL Plus Group. Our partners at Netflix, Larry Tance and Lauren Smith, were very integral in helping us put it together and finding a home globally. And it was also important because this is the type of narrative that hits that global, world, iconic story that is about a gated community. And it is something that we have been feeling more and more globally about certain politicians talking about walls going up. And it's a great opportunity to be able to bring it in a narrative form. Nicola Shindler, you're an executive producer, an inspirational force of nature. Don't giggle. Your production company has won 11 BAFTA awards, took home the Peabody Award for Happy Valley, and you are one of the most powerful women in the globe, not only according to The Hollywood Reporter, but in my humble opinion as well, and one of the 25 most honorable. It's a pure pleasure working with Nicola. She is incredibly talented, and I am honored to consider you my friend.
Thank you.
Really, one of the best producers in the UK. Michael C. Hall. You haven't really done a lot, have you? Dexter, 6 Feet Under. The way you choose your titles, your characters, I actually cannot wait to see the rest. I've seen the first 2 episodes, and I cannot wait to see what you do with Tom. The way that we have seen you take characters throughout the world. You have actually chosen characters that transcend the boundaries and have garnered awards like Golden Globes, SAG Awards, Golden Nymph in Monte Carlo. And this majority of these awards are just on those 2 titles. Bravo.
Thank you.
Danny Brocklehurst, BAFTA, International Emmy Award-winning screenwriter. You've been prolific and a talented voice in the UK landscape. Your strength is to find characters with emotional journeys, but what's incredible is actually your characters have transcended boundaries. Whether you've gotten a piece of the action or not, I don't know, but they've been sold everywhere. Your series have been successful. You're a longtime companion with Nicola and Red Productions, with many successful series. I just want one question for you, and then I will introduce Harlan, but what the fuck is in the water in Manchester between the 2 of you? You're very successful in what you've done. I would like to shout out, before I speak about Harlan, of Richard Fee, who may be in the audience and who works with Nicola for many years and a creative producer on SAFE and was very integral to bringing that also to life with this team. Last but not least, our New Jersey boy, Harlan Coben, talking about what's in the water in New Jersey. You've been called a French national treasure.
By who?
You are a perennial #1 New York Times bestseller author, 31 novels. I don't know how you do it. You've published in 43 languages around the globe, and you are an executive producer for several original TV shows, original ideas, and adaptations of your novels. Your motto is clearly never change a winning team, as it's not the first time you've joined forces with Nicola and Danny. So let's get to it.
That's the end of the cringe portion of the program. She makes all 3 of us cringe. Sitting here, all of us are just kind of like this.
The themes today we want to touch on are 3 different topics, and the first one is about the challenges of bringing SAFE to life. Nicola, you've developed and produced for so many years, and SAFE was definitely a big international production for you. So from production point of view, what do you feel were the biggest challenges, and how did you overcome them?
Well, SAFE it was such a strong story from the minute that Harlan talked about it, because it looks at parenting, it looks at community, it looks at relationships. So already those are the biggest international kind of themes because they're so universal. So for me, the personal is what makes something feel big and global. And then what we had to do is when we started working on the scripts with Danny and the idea developed, was we just had to make sure that it didn't feel too internal looking, because it's about a community, it's about a gated community, and it could end up feeling quite small and soapy in that respect. But I think what we did the whole time was make sure we were looking outwards, making sure that we had those themes at the centre of what we were doing, and also in terms of the look, it shouldn't have looked like a typical British place to live. It had to feel bigger than that. And I think with Harlan's stories, they're just a fraction heightened in the best possible sense. So everyone's grounded in terms of character and dialogue, but the stories can push it a little bit further. And we needed to make sure that the setting and the look reflected that. And that's what we'd set out to do.
And in fact, I think that was one of the points, Harlan, when you and Nicola were talking about taking these characters. You didn't want to do a British production.
Yeah, I kind of always tease them. No raincoats, no trench coats, no gray streets, no fog. And you saw the trailer, it's bright lights, it's bright color, it's life, it's family, it's community, and all of those sort of things. And they knew that, and they were, what's interesting is both this show and the 5 that we did together, that we all had this, I hate this word, but we all had the same vision. And I think, and Michael on this one too, we all were wanting to tell the same kind of story that was really a story about family and community surrounding a really exciting, gripping mystery where secrets and lies and betrayal will go on.
And Danny, in terms of hearing that and these characters, and granted you're part of coming back with the golden team of the 3 of you working together, what was the biggest challenge that you had there?
I mean, the challenge is just always having to work with Harlan, really. I mean, the amount of emails he sends me, dear me, it's like a full-time job.
You are a full-time screenwriter.
Yeah,
it is a full-time.
It is a full-time. No, just dealing with your emails is a full-time job.
Okay, guys.
No, I mean, I think when we went into SAFE, having done the 5, we wanted to make sure that it felt very grounded and about family and about themes that felt very kind of universal. And for me, and I know that's a conversation we all had very early on, it was about making sure that we could do a sort of, a thriller like that set in this tight community, but that felt like we were delivering important themes about family and community. And I think, that's kind of one of the brilliant things about Harlan's books, is that they always feel very relatable. So it's just making sure that you get that on screen, but obviously you've got to fill, an enormous amount of hours. So it's balancing those 2 things, really. That was the challenge.
And it's interesting because the characters, when you wrote it, and you hadn't gotten into casting yet, having someone as internationally renowned as you, Michael, you chose, in discussion with the rest of the creative team, that the character Tom that you were playing, you wanted to play him as an Englishman. At a time when a lot of people are bringing Americans into other countries and then having that American lens into that situation, whatever the narrative may be, but you chose to keep that lens local and English. And what was with that challenge?
Well, that was a fundamental part of the appeal, the challenge of integrating myself into a cast that was, aside from Audrey, Fleurot, exclusively British. And I felt, I certainly didn't want the show to make some sort of consideration, because I was playing the part, to recontextualize it so that Tom was American. In fact, there was talk at some point that it was going to happen in the US, and the appeal really kind of went down for me, because Yeah. I wanted to turn the tables. You know, there's British actors and Australian actors going to America and taking parts from real Americans. So I wanted to take a part from an English actor.
Beautiful. Second theme: creative freedom, accessibility. Harlan, what inspired you to create a gated community? Could you give the potential filmmakers here in this room or producers a little bit of that guidance?
I don't consider myself at all a political writer. It's just not what I sort of do. But there's been a lot of talk about walls. And I started to think, you build walls sometimes to keep the bad out, but what if when you build the wall, you keep the bad in? And that whole idea of how far you'll go to keep your family safe, which would be a good title for a show, and then trying to make that sort of world just a small thing that happens. It's a small, it's like I like working with a very sort of placid pond, and so one little pebble can make the thing ripple right in a tremendous storm, and that's kind of what happens in this community. And you find that really everyone in this community has secrets and lies, and they're trying to bury something about their past. And that was what the appeal was, starting, though, with that whole political sort of argument. That was deep. Give me a moment.
Michael, I'm curious about your process. You've been either very fortunate or you've chosen wisely, from the character Tom, Dexter, David in 6 Feet Under. How does that happen?
I mean, it's only in hindsight that I could point to any sort of guiding principle or wisdom. I think I have been very lucky to have been presented with opportunities at the right time. But ultimately, it's about the material. You know, in this case, I read the script and I thought it was fantastic. And I was compelled by the story and on the hook in terms of wondering where it was all going to go. And, you know, within several pages, I had already gained a sense of complex relationships, real human beings. I was excited by a show that seemed to be aspiring to be a thriller, but also have elements of a family drama and of a psychological study. It sort of manages to fuse things that often are relegated to one corner or the other.
We tend to. We definitely tend to. When you look at your track record, Nicola, the themes that you have chosen in the stories and series that you've developed and produced are quite universal in their appeal. Even though you've landed them from a story setting in the UK, whether Manchester, Yorkshire, London, what's your process in deciding what you want to go for? Or how do you make that decision, this is something I'd like to do? And if you're a young, aspiring filmmaker, creator, producer here in the audience, what advice would you give them for that?
Well, I personally am very writer-driven. So for me, it's less about me saying to a writer, I think the world needs a police show, or I think the world needs this. It's more about digging with the writer what they really want to write. And I think that's a process that sometimes is frustratingly slow, but I think what you get at the end of it is far more rewarding. So I can have a relationship with a writer that's over a number of years, and we are maybe doing a long-running series, and it's not until 4 years in that we kind of really find out what that writer wants to write. It's happened.
Patience is the key here.
But also listening to the writer, listening to, even if they don't know themselves, but understanding what their passions are and understanding what's really important to them. And I do think writers come back to the same themes and experiences that they've had. And so I think it's about working with a writer, even if they've just got a great theme, then it's about finding the story with them that can have that world. But because the thing about Safe is we're all talking about it like says a lot about the world. Actually, ultimately, it's a really good thriller, I hope. And it's something that you want to keep watching. It's got story after story after story. We were just talking about how we throw story at episodes. And so I can help a writer, and I think producers can do that, to get the story going. But ultimately, it's writers' voices at the centre of it that make it feel very real.
And on that, with SAFE specifically, Danny, what was that entry point in SAFE that gave you this one, I can crack that nut in this direction, notwithstanding that you have Harlan who breaks story with you? Where are the characters and how did you connect in that, in the entry?
Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, it was about finding that central character of Tom and what his family dynamic was, you know, the loss of his wife, him trying to bring up the kids, but also the sort of larger, something about the larger kind of community that we created. So it was interesting for me to try and piece together these people, you know, very different people. There's a character in it called Jojo, who's like one of the biggest characters I've written, you know, very fun to write. Yeah. But I think it was about trying to dig away at the kind of, you know, I mean, a lot of drama does this, but dig away at the secrets behind the facade, really, you know, and that was kind of interesting. So you set up these characters, but you know that over 8 episodes that you're going to peel away certain things to reveal truths.
In terms of your process, Harlan, because, like, why the hell would you do what you do when you could just be on your own and have fun control and write a book?
Oh, he has control. He doesn't lose control.
Though that is a really good question. It's why I haven't really done it very often or very much. Because she's sitting next to me, I don't want to be too nice to Nicola. But she's really a fantastic producing partner, and she is a writer's producer, and she does get more. Both of us also, if you look at our emails, I guarantee we've exchanged 20,000 emails. I mean, we're both obsessed. We are up all hours communicating any little problem. So we're very similar in that way. Nicola is very good about pushing me and making me and demanding even more of me, though I'm always the one who beats me up more than anyone. And then you add Danny in, who we have a weird kind of simpatico where there are times I'm reading what Danny wrote and it's kind of like, yeah, that's exactly how I would have written it, but maybe a little better. I mean, he really, it sounds so weird to say we channel each other, but we have a very similar vision, and it's really kind of weird how often Danny just sort of, even the humor and the jokes he makes are, you know, just hit that nail on the head. So with this dynamite team and Nicola's track record in the past of Happy Valley and Queer as Folk and Last Tango in Halifax, and that with her work ethic, I can escape. You know, Michael and I were just talking backstage about escaping some of the bullshit part that some of you will have to handle and you have to handle in terms of, and you handle for us, Rola, in terms of production and what network and costs and line producing and all of that. So I can just concentrate on telling the best story I can, and Michael can just concentrate on bringing Tom to life, and Danny can do his thing. That's a really invaluable combination. And so we have our own little world. We really don't get as many notes. We don't get bothered. Maybe because they're in Manchester. I don't think we get quite as bothered as some other people about what we have to do and be told.
We should say as well, it's because of the producer.
Yeah. That's what I just wanted to mention when you said that, because I do help on terms of the network and putting the financing together. There's a woman there in the first row, Michaela, who had to put up with a lot of shit in her line producing. And it's great to see her here with us today.
And even though you've mentioned before, we all know Richard Fee is hugely important. Richard sits with me for hours and makes me tell the story over and over again. And then he's like, okay, that's great. Okay, but what happens right after Tom goes, you know, always pushing, making sure, and then arranging the outlines. And I always say that Richard, for both this series and The Five, which is why I'm mentioning his name again, is the unsung hero behind those two shows.
Michael, we like having you here in Europe. What can we do?
Oh, thank you.
Absolutely, absolutely.
It's okay, that's okay.
So, as the world has become global, and really we have 2 Americans on stage and 2 Brits on stage.
And a Canadian.
and a Canadian, thank you. And we're all involved in an incredibly international production. How does someone like you make a decision where am I going to go look for my, you said earlier, I go for the script and where the story is.
Yeah, I was, one thing leads to another in life, and certainly in this business, and I was in London doing a stage production of Lazarus, a musical, and I just was enjoying my time there. I was in London when the US election happened, and I can't say that that has nothing to do with my desire not to return to the US, but I met with an agent with whom I had a sort of ongoing casual relationship, and just said, I'm really loving being here in the UK, and are there any other opportunities that might allow me to continue working over here? And one of the first things he set up was a meeting with Harlan and Nicola, and everything else kind of fell away. And that was definitely the thing, so that's how it happened, yeah.
Cool, very cool. So the dream team behind the scenes, what's up next?
Well, we are hoping to work together again. This time we're looking at a book of Harlan's, for the first thing that we're going to do.
What's the name?
The book is called The Stranger, and it's such a fantastic concept. It's about lives being blown apart by someone coming in and telling you things about your own life that you didn't know, and it just it's a great story that takes you places that you didn't expect to go. So we're just talking at the moment about how to do that, how to make that work. It'd be another UK set show. And ideally we want to work with Michael again. If not on that,
Deal.
On everything. Everything else.
Do we have any questions from the audience? Is that something you're allowed to do here, or if you want to?
That question was about, do we plan things for the way it's watched? And the answer is yes, really, isn't it? Which is, we knew this was going to be on Netflix early, and we knew that meant that the hooks were absolutely key. I mean, in terms of writing.
But at the same time, I try making it like, I want this to be, instead of writing a novel on paper, I want to write a novel on a screen. So this is, to me, a novel. And that's how my novel, the books of mine, I want you to take them to bed at 11 o'clock at night, say I'm going to read for 10 minutes, then it's 4 in the morning and you're cursing me out. I love that. I want you to do the same thing with TV. So in my case, I don't pay as much attention to that. Everything I want is to I want everything I do to feel bingey, even if it's not for binge. But yeah, I think we directed it that way.
Yes, I agree.
But it is different, because Danny and I have just done a show for BBC One as well. And I think even though you still want the hooks at the end of each episode, because you know it's going to be a week in between the episodes, it's a different feel than knowing that someone can press straight away.
Well, I do think this is the way people want to watch things now. So, increasingly, I know there's a hardcore of people who still say, "Oh, I'd like to watch one a week," but increasingly people say, I did a series last year that went out 1 episode per week, and I had people saying to me, "Oh, I'm going to wait and then just watch them." You're like, well, that's no good to me, really, but because I want I want the ratings, but. It's just the way people want to watch TV now, and I think everybody has to wake up to that. People want to watch TV when they want to watch TV.
This is for Michael. Are we going to see Dexter again?
I don't know, man. I don't know. I mean, honestly, I don't know. I can't just definitively say absolutely not. He's still alive, and I can imagine being presented with something that felt like a story worth telling, but nothing's, in the works or anything.
Hi, I'm French from France Television's, French public broadcaster. What about Netflix in the process? Did you come to them, or did they come to you, and how did they get in the way, if I may say? Thank you.
Well, they didn't get in the way. I will let the team creatively answer that question, but we did approach them because this is a dream team, and Michael was already on board when we approached them, so the combination of everybody here, it's a no-brainer.
And they were really great to work with, actually. So they did read the scripts, they watched, they had the edits, they gave us notes, but it was a very collaborative relationship and very hands-off. They're very respectful of what you want to make, but indicate what they need as well, which is ideal, really.
Yes. We've got a mic for you.
Hi, my name's Jane. I'm a writer. I was just wondering whether the SVOD services give you more scope to tell stories of different lengths. So, you know, you can tell stories in different sort of numbers of episodes.
They do, definitely. But the longer the better for them. And I think the thing about British TV, which we should still be grateful for, is that you can still do short-form serials. So the show that we just made is 3 hours, which I don't think you can do anywhere else in the world. And actually, it's a great way to tell a strong story that doesn't need to come back. And I think that being able to do that is really a privilege, which probably will disappear the more the SVODs come into play.
Thank you.
Well, yes. We still have time, but I do have my last question.
Hi, I'm Eric, and I'm an aspiring writer. With the Netflix era or streaming service era, creative pressure, how has that, I guess, played a part in in your careers over time? Has it been more free with the creative process now with streaming, or is it more constricting, rather? I guess that's the...
I kind of think it's a combination of both, because in some respects there's more freedom because you know what they want, and then within those hours that you've got, you can go away and make something. On the other hand, everything has to have a scale which puts some dramas out the picture. So because everything has to attract a global audience and has to be big and shouty, sometimes the smaller stories get forgotten. And I think that probably local broadcasters are still really important to tell those smaller stories. Otherwise, everything's going to have a scale and not a shoutiness about it, but a tension grabbing that isn't great if you're getting the same kind of drama all the time.
And may not always land locally.
Yeah.
Which is important,
yeah.
You know. Danny, you were going to say something?
Yeah, I mean, on a similar kind of theme, really. Just that I think there are massive opportunities with streaming now. I mean, certainly you're being encouraged to be very bold with your thinking, but it is much harder to get attention. You know, I think that there are some things, particularly that land on Netflix, that might just get lost. In the mix of all the things that are there. So I don't know. There's certainly pros and cons. I mean, I think it's a very positive thing that Netflix have come into the market, and I think there's a lot of positives that have come out of it. But I do echo what Nicola said about smaller things and sometimes more intricate work and more sort of low-key work that's still important, but not as eye-catching.
So SAFE is about living in a community and feeling safe in that community. It's also about discovering the real truth behind the closed doors. So my last question to this auspicious, untalented group of people is, what is your guilty pleasure behind your closed door? We'll start with you, Danny.
Oh, thanks.
Does it involve farm animals, Danny?
Yeah.
Only when we're Skyping. Yeah, I know. You'd tipped me off you were going to ask me this question, didn't you, Rola? But,
yeah, I did. You weren't supposed to tell the crowd, though.
I'm very fond of music from the 1970s that's not necessarily something you should be admitting, like Manilow, that kind of thing, I like to sing a bit of Barry to myself when nobody's around, just carefree.
In the shower?
I always hear him referred to as Barry Manilow, but you both refer to him as Manilow and Barry.
Yeah. Absolutely.
It's kind of one of the...
It's Barry, really.
Is it Barry?
Yeah, it'll always be Barry. Or maybe a little bit of disco, just when nobody's around. Yeah.
With the ball hanging from us.
Yeah, the glitter ball. Anyway, Harlan.
I like to listen to Danny singing Barry Manilow when I'm alone. And I think I speak for, I know I speak for Michael C. Hall, and I think I speak for Nicola when I ask that Danny demonstrate a little bit of some of that Barry Manilow singing.
Maybe after a drink later.
I hate the term guilty pleasure, because if you enjoy it, it's just like, what TV shows your guilty pleasure? If you like it, like my daughter loves, she loves that RuPaul. Do you guys have that here?
Yep.
RuPaul drag.
Yes.
She loves it. I can't stand a moment of it. But it's not a guilty pleasure. It's whatever you love, man. I used to love that Beverly Hills 90210 back in the day. So whatever it is you're into, it's not a guilty pleasure. You just friggin' enjoy it. I mean, that's one of the problems that, when Nicola was alluding to is, yeah, we're talking how important our show is and family dynamics and walls. Tell a damn good story. Move people, entertain them. Too many things forget that. And I often get asked that too with books. It's like, don't you want to write serious literature? What's serious literature? All the great writers that you love. In this country, Dumas and Hugo, and you go to Dostoevsky, Oscar Wilde, Dickens, Shakespeare, they were all genre writers, not making money. That's what they were doing. Now they're considered that. So I think for the one thing that I would tell the writers out there is, don't forget to tell a story. Don't forget to entertain us. We know you're a genius with wonderful insights into the human condition, and you'll get that out. But really, first entertain me, or I'm not going to listen to it.
You turned that around, didn't you?
And that's what Harlan likes to do in private.
Also, get Michael C. Hall to do your show. That's my other piece of it.
I was hoping you'd forgotten that you'd asked the question.
No, definitely not. Curious minds want to know.
I'm with Harlan. I don't believe in guilt. So I'll, do what
on.
I want as long as I'm
Every
not
one
hurting
of those are your pleasures.
Well, I didn't say believe in
us a proper
guilt,
answer.
guilty pleasures. We're Jewish. We believe in guilt. We're big on guilt.
Yeah, talking in television terms, I've been known to look at a bit of reality TV at times and then switch it off suddenly when my children walk in the room so that I don't make them, so they're not allowed to watch it.
Because they're not allowed.
Yeah, and then they notice that I'm on the entertainment channel when they come back into the room. So that's what I tend to avoid letting people know that I watch.
Cool.
I don't really feel guilty about it, but I like to have conversations, not talk to, but actually have conversations with my animals.
And how do they respond?
Well, it depends on the animal and depends on what I say. But I try to channel them and figure out what they're saying in English. Of course, they don't speak English. It's complicated, but I do that and say yes to the dress.
See, that's one that I do as well.
Yeah, there's a lot of really. I mean, if you want to look at some really just passive-aggressive family dynamics, it's really good for that.
Well, is it bad, like when I watch the Antique Roadshow, I cheer for something really bad to happen, like that one obnoxious guy who's like, I bought this for, first of all, they're proud that they rip people off, aren't they, in that show? It's like, I bought this for $5 from some moron and it's worth $10,000. I cheer on that moment when the guy comes in all smug and thinks he has something really valuable, and then the guy says, I'm sorry, it's a fake. I love that, I'm sorry.
It's actually worth $3. You overpaid.
I don't know if that's a guilty pleasure, but I love that.
Yeah, those are the antique shows. We have them.
As an actor, what's your kind of casting process? If you're all producers, how involved are you in the casting process?
Oh my God, they're fully
Very,
involved.
very involved, all of us. Our producer would be in the room with the director and the actor, but everything's recorded, and then we'll watch it and have big, long debates for a long period of time about actors, because everyone sees different things in different people. So it's hard to come to a consensus often.
What you should know, the only thing that I find surprising is how close it really is between the person sometimes. I mean, not in the case of a Michael or Amanda or Audrey, but how close it is sometimes when we're picking people and it really isn't you. There's just times it's not fitting a type, it's what's in somebody's head. That we're subjective, objective, and every other adjective. There's no straight-on criteria, and there'll be times that the three of us we'll pick 3 different people out of 3. That's how close it is, and then we have a long discussion. I think on this one not as much, but on the 5, I think we probably watched about 300 audition tapes for the top 10 roles or something like that, somebody told me. And so you stick with it. I mean, just keep working at it, and don't take it personally if it doesn't happen. It doesn't happen for you, because it is a lot of luck involved in it.
When I don't get a job, I usually say, you know, I didn't want to hang out with those assholes anyway. So there's that.
Now he says it after he gets the job.
It's been an honor. Thank you for making the time in your all of you busy schedules. Thank you very much. It's been really a treat for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Rola.
Thank you.
So, see you there.